This is the Hitchman Podcast coming to you live from New York City, where we are talking all things dating, love, relationships, matchmaking, first dates, second dates, how we get that ring on your finger. I got my good friend here, Jamie Weathers, coming in live from Buffalo, New York. Quick story, go Bills. We met watching the Buffalo Bills. So I had to bring her on here because today we're going to be talking about first dates and the swagger that comes along with what it takes to turn a first date into a second date. So,
first of all, I'm not from Buffalo. Or, well, I don't live in Buffalo right now. I'm from Buffalo, but I live in New York.
Yeah, because she is single. So, I want everyone to know on this so that, she lives in New York City, born and raised in Buffalo, New York. Yes. So that's why we love the Bills. So you are right. She lives here. She is single. She is ready to mingle. And she is the best. So, we might see after this episode if we still think she is. But
you're like, and that's the last time we ever saw her.
To be determined what's going to happen. Okay, so I want to start us off with, in the Hitchman, we talk a lot about the swagger you have to have on a first date and this ability to kind of connect with the person that you're sitting across from. And, there is this emotional connection that even though a first date is a first date, you kind of have to have that emotional connection with someone to kind of get to that second date. And for me, there's a swagger that kind of goes along with it. And if you've seen the movie Hitch with Will Smith tries to teach Albert, although he failed kind of in the end because who Albert was really was the swagger. But I think with me, I really work with my clients on, and like finding that sparkle, finding that thing that really makes you like on a date when you're sitting there, like shine and makes the person be like, oh my God, this person, like, I can't, like, I don't want this date to end. But also then like, I want to see this person again. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I feel like that's something that a lot of people kind of need work. I think, this idea that people think, oh, they're just beautiful and they just kind of, I'm just going to sit there and be pretty is kind of not very 2024.
No, not at all. It reminds me of, I think, I don't know if I read it or if I saw it in a documentary, but it reminds me of Marilyn Monroe. So Marilyn Monroe, I love her. She was just magic on a screen, right? Amen. She had swagger,
she
right?
Definitely had swagger.
100%. And I think it was like a filmmaker or somebody said this about her, and they said that they've never seen someone so comfortable in their own skin. And I think that swagger or what people come to the table with, it's really about, a lot of people say, well, confidence and but what does that look like? And I think a lot of that confidence really is, am I comfortable in my own skin? Like, I know what I bring to the table, but I'm not trying to overcompensate in any way. I'm totally comfortable with who I am.
Because we always like those people that overcompensate and like you can see it's kind of a show that they're putting on. And it's like an interview. I feel like for me, those are things that are absolute, like they're red flags.
Oh,
because it's
100%.
like you need to be able to sit down at a table with someone and be like, this is a conversation. It's not an interview. This isn't like 12 questions of, and I do have a client that said, I think I need to get better at asking questions on a date. And I was like, yeah, you totally do, because you have to have like ideas about things. But if it starts to turn into an interview where you're just like asking question after question after question, and it's not flowing together as one.
Yeah, I think it has to be like a healthy volley of questions, right? Back and forth. Like I asked him questions and he asked me questions. Because I find that a lot on dates, it's usually one or the other, right? Like I'm usually like naturally attracted because I'm like a little gregarious and like out there sometimes. So I'm naturally like attracted to like the quiet, confident types.
Okay, I like that.
But sometimes if they're not confident enough to come to the table and ask me questions about myself, then I'm like, oh, you're not interested.
And I think this is where the emotional connection and the emotional intelligence that we talk about really like comes in. It's that ability to sit across the table from someone and like look at them and watch them. I had two older sisters, so that did help when I played sports. And so like I feel like that really helped me without in the dating scene. But it really is that ability to look across the table and be like, how can I make this person feel comfortable, laugh, feel sexy,
Totally.
give them
Totally.
compliments without like being too sexual.
Yes.
And making them feel like, oh, I'm comfortable and I feel sexy and I'm like, I want to share. I want to be vulnerable with this person because they're making me feel comfortable.
You know, that makes me think, I think that might be, I might be totally off on this, but I think that might be a really valid reason as to why girls, like I know myself, when I'm like, oh, these are the things I want in a guy. One of the top things that I say that I like is a guy who can make me laugh. But now that you just said that, I'm wondering if part of the reason why I love a guy who can make me laugh is because it's actually that icebreaker. It's actually that thing that
awkwardness at the beginning.
Or it's funny and it's fun, and that's actually a little bit, that's relaxing, right? Like,
totally.
And I'm goofy and silly, and
totally.
So if somebody else is goofy and silly, I'm like, oh, okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
but I never thought about
that's
that.
a swagger to that. There's a swagger because I feel like like for me, I can sometimes be like cool, calm, and collected. That's kind of always been my thing. Like, yeah, I just feel like that's, I'm not like gonna come at you with like a lot of like, but I kind of sit back and I like to watch.
But that's my problem.
Yeah,
I'm always like I'm like, so hi, what's your mom's middle name?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what we're gonna. Maybe we need to talk about this after the podcast.
This is a therapy session for me.
I like that. But yeah, that is like, I think that's something but that's who I am really. Like, you know, I think I've figured out what makes me me and what makes me comfortable in my own skin. Then I think those are things that I work on with my clients of like, what makes you feel comfortable in who you are, and being like, you know, these are the things that I bring to the table. I got this. I'm beautiful and I'm hardworking and I'm a great caretaker. Mm-hmm. Right. And then able to be like, hey, I'm actually looking for these things. Right. I think those are that ability right there to be comfortable in your own skin.
Yes.
And then also be like, you know, I'm not perfect and I need help with this. I need you to bring this to the table. Totally. I think those are opportunities for you to kind of connect with the person you're kind of going on a date with, where it's like that feeling that, oh, like now we're actually talking about each other. We're not just talking about, oh, this is my mom, or this is my brother, this is my nieces and my nephews, or this is where I want a vacation. It's kind of putting this idea in the head.
Give me an example of what that would look like. Like, I think I'm following you. So you mean like where you're being a little bit more vulnerable and explaining what you don't have? Is that what you mean?
100%.
Okay.
Like,
so
what are
your
strengths? Like for me, I'm a caretaker. I'm a lover. I love that.
So what are you bad at?
I have a lot of
nothing.
things. No, I have a lot of things I'm really bad at. And so I feel like I need someone that's like organized, that like really brings that sense of like the ability to not only plan things, but like financially be like, that was naughty. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just bought a new pair of shoes. And I think that was like, you know, it was a moment where I was like, I should not have bought those shoes because I didn't really need them. I have like 12 pairs of white sneakers. Uh-huh. And I feel like that I need that person to be like, why did you buy those sneakers? Because you already have 10 other pairs of those.
Okay, that's fine. But how would that translate on a first date?
Okay, so on a first you just asked me what my things are.
No, I know. But I want an example of how that would work on a first date.
So on a first date, I think those are like the ability to be like, hey, like I'm a caretaker. I'm someone that, you know, really likes to kind of make sure everyone's feeling comfortable. I really want you to feel like, you know, you're in my space. I want you to feel, I need you to bring a little bit of flair, a little like the funniness, a little bit of like thing. Like, do you bring that? Like, what's your like, what's your thing and what's your take on that?
I mean, I think I do. I think that on a first date, or not just on a first date, I do think what I do, if, as you say, bring to the table.
Exactly.
Is that I do like to make people feel comfortable.
Okay.
Right? Like that's, I want you to feel comfortable to open up. I want you to feel comfortable to be yourself.
Yeah.
I want you to feel comfortable saying what you think or what you feel, that it's kind of a no judgment zone. I think that's something that's like a core value that I have, and that I think people who have spent time with me, I've gotten that feedback.
But that's really beautiful though.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that is, for me, that's a wife quality. Which that's a wife quality.
That is right.
I feel like that's like, and I think that also is an ability for then that your person is sitting across the table to kind of see you as a mother, right? If that's what they want, if the kids and like, because you have like,
like a mother.
yes, of his children.
Okay,
or,
not
I mean,
like
you know
a
what I
mother
mean?
to
Yes.
him.
No, not
because
a
we
mother
don't
to
like
him.
that.
No,
We don't
no,
like
not
that.
a mother to him.
Okay.
Some people are into that, so you know,
Yeah, I mean,
you never know.
Whatever.
But it's that like because for me that's what I'm talking about. That's where that vulnerability of that, like, oh, we're talking about us together, not
Yes.
just like, oh, a story about like we all been on the first dates where you just talk about, oh, I went on this amazing trip and I did this and I did
Yes.
that and I did that. But like that ability right there to show that you're like, oh, you make people feel comfortable and like you're gonna be an amazing mother and you're gonna have kids, then brings that other person in.
Yes.
To be like, oh, like I can actually see a relationship with this person. I can see meeting up with them for a second time or a third time. This is not a first dates, to go back to kind of the idea of it. These are to get to a second date. And the way that you get to a second date is really connecting with the person across. And sometimes you hit, I think for me, I really push my clients to be vulnerable, to share stories about like, hey, 45 minutes to an hour and a half is like, I think that's a perfect first date. It should not be longer than that. Because for me, you need to like leave them wanting more.
That is so good.
Because by 2 hours, 2:45, 3 hours, like there's going to be things that annoy you about that person because listen, that's just, no relationship is perfect. There's going to be things, but to get to that second date, you kind of need to leave that little bit of like, ooh, I want to know more.
I know. I feel like sometimes I've gotten from guys like on a first date when I'm like, all right, let's keep this
going.
We'll
go to another
keep it
spot?
tight.
Oh.
45-minute, boop, 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 like
in and
that
out.
whole,
I'm busy.
Yeah, booked and busy. They take that the wrong way.
Oh.
They can, a lot of times I find guys, especially in New York, will be like, oh, you didn't have a good time. And I'm like, no, great time. Right. So I don't know how I'm struggling to get that. And I feel like I'm reassuring them. I'm saying with my mouth, hey, I had a really great time. I'd love to do this again. I'm going to go meet my friends, but I will, hopefully I'll hear from you.
I love that.
Boom, boom,
though.
boom. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
But sometimes guys will take it the wrong way and they'll think like, oh my gosh, she's walking out on me. I don't know. I'm not a guy, but they tend to take it the wrong way.
Interesting.
Which is so annoying because I'm like,
are you sure you're reassuring them that you had a good time? That also,
I'm saying
I will say also though, for me, that's okay. Like
I know. Then they're weeding themselves out.
Yeah, that's too like you want someone that's also like we talked about before. They're feeling comfortable in themselves. Then if the energy is right, the energy is kind of right. And that's, we're going to talk about things also again, like in a little bit about that idea that you kind of got to also like, you got to fight for something. You got to be able to like put yourself out there for a second date, for a third date. You have to work for it a little bit. And I think that's something we're scared of sometimes is like, again, then being vulnerable after the first date to be like, hey, let's go on a second date.
I mean, we could talk about that forever about like male versus female. I always find as a female really hard to be like, hey, let's go on a date again.
We got to start doing that
because I've always been told, like if he wanted to, he would, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so I'm like, it's I don't know. I just think it has to be a healthy balance.
I mean, I agree with that. I think I grew up with two sisters, and so for me, I always I love that energy of like a strong woman.
Yeah.
And I think like, of course, I want you to be taken care of and loved and like treated like, amazing like you are. But I also think there's a side of like in 2024 of like strong women going after what they want. And I think there is a side and there's a way that you can do it.
So I am going to try this. Then.
Okay, good. I want you to.
I will try this.
Wait,
I'm
really
thinking
like
of
this.
someone in particular.
Ooh, I like it.
Who
Tell me about this.
No,
we're not there yet.
Okay. I'll be vulnerable and tell you. I went on what I thought was the best first date.
Okay.
I've ever been on.
Like that.
And I just thought he just did everything right. He was such a gentleman. I was really intrigued by him. I was really intrigued by his background. He was asking me questions. I was asking him questions. He surprised me, right? Like I think I went into the date thinking, he's kind of attractive. He's attractive and I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, but I was like, let's give it a whirl. And he was way better than I expected.
I love this.
Okay. He was way better than I expected. And I will say I had like 2 cocktails and I should have only had one.
Oh, she was feeling good.
Well, yeah, but then also like a little paranoid because I'm like, am I saying too much or whatever?
She gets in
so
her head
anyway,
sometimes.
and then like he didn't ask me out again. Like in real life, he said something along the lines of like he dropped me off at my house, my apartment, like. He walked me to my door. He didn't like try to kiss me though. And I was like, oh, that's a bad sign. I don't know. It could be good. It could be bad. And then
he could be
like
a gentleman.
He could be a gentleman. I don't know. But then we were like chit-chatting afterward or chit-chat the next day or something like that about something that was relevant or something that came up in our conversation the day before. And then he just like never asked me out again. And I was like,
the chit chat is too much. This is the way we talk a lot about this. Okay. So first
do,
of all,
do I ask him out again?
Yes, of course. You do.
I should?
Like in the beginning, too much chit chat. How's your day going? What are you up to? It's like, if you want to do it, let's like we did the first date. If you're still texting the next day, plan the second date.
So should I let him
plan the second date?
Let him turn, like if he doesn't want to, he'll turn me down.
Shoot your shot. Always shoot your shot.
As a girl?
Yes, shoot your shot. Shoot your shot. Because why not? Like that
okay.
also for me.
I will try.
Okay, good.
I'm going to try and I will report back.
All right, good. Thank you. Also, I'm going to say something that you said and that I really love, and I talk about this a lot.
Okay.
Is that giving people that opportunity to go on the date. Sometimes if you see a photo of someone and you're like, oh, this person like it's not perfect. You're not like, oh my God, this is going to be it. I'm not so sexually attracted to them. For me, I feel like you got to go on that date, especially if they're pursuing, because for me, that energy, that emotional connection makes people sexy. Like that's something that I really talk about with people is that we get so fixated on, oh, like they have to be my type. They have looking for a guy in finance, 6'5", trust fund, whatever. But if someone can get on a date with you.
But that would be really nice.
I know.
Right?
See,
it'd be really nice.
Gosh, this is always the issue.
Okay. Anyway.
But my thing is, if you get on that date, sometimes like there's this sexiness that comes from this emotional connection you have with someone, and that sounds exactly like what just happened there. That, like,
for
you were
sure,
yeah, and you went on the date.
By the way, he might actually have been like 6'5", finance, not exactly trust fund, but But you're absolutely right. You can have all of those things, and they're an absolute dud.
Take a chance.
Take a chance.
And then also this leads me to the second thing. So you went on that first date. I love that. If you're still texting the next day, that means something's great.
But I think I texted him.
That's okay though. Did he answer?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then
maybe he's being polite.
No, I don't really. People actually aren't really that. It's New York City. People are not that polite because I have so many stories.
But he was a good guy. He was like, maybe. Okay, we'll find out.
Shoot your shot.
I'll shoot my shot again.
I feel like always like ask that question, and that's also something too that I really feel strongly about is you have to shoot your shot, because what happens then is you get in your head and you constantly feeling like, oh, I don't know if he likes me. I don't know if he likes me.
Yeah, that was me.
Like back and forth. And the issue is that sometimes, and my guys, we got to step up a little bit, because I think, sometimes, and I know that my girls and my guys are going through this process where, they don't really know because the person doesn't come back strongly. But when you shoot your shot and you say like, hey, I'm feeling a certain way, it's being vulnerable, but also then you get to hear what you want to hear, or you don't get to. It could be the wrong thing, but that's okay. It's still the idea that like,
Okay, I like this because, so a person who's very close to me, a family member, who's a man, who also lives in New York City, and it's my brother. Anyway,
I love your brother. He's the best.
He is.
He's like the kindest guy.
He is single and great. So anyway, he went on a date. It was like his, just moved to New York, first date with a girl in New York City, and he really liked her. And like, I think like even before they met, like he felt like, oh, this could be a really nice, connection. And of course I was like, are you doing all the things right? And I'm making sure big sister, like making sure he looks good for his first date and stuff like that. And so he comes back and he's like, yeah, I really liked her, but I just don't think she was into me. He was just not feeling confident. Okay. See? Then he finds out, I don't know how, like maybe a couple of months later, like he texts her, she texts him, and she said, "Oh, I thought you ghosted me." She would have gone on a second date with him, but he just didn't have the confidence. He got in his head.
So it happens. That's the thing too. I think that this is the thing. It happens to the guys as well.
Yeah,
guys do feel like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to get hurt. And I think being vulnerable is scary.
Yeah.
And we live in a world now where social media and these dating apps, make it like seem like everything is perfect. And so a lot of that, like, that culture is now really like seeped into our dating life. You gotta in ghosting, I don't like a ghosting culture is something I'm really big on. We are not ghosting. We are just being like, hey, really great to meet you, but I think it's a pass. And I think for me,
do you say that?
Yeah.
You say I think a pass, or do you say?
No, I didn't say a pass, but like, hey, I thought you were great, but I don't.
Because somebody out there is gonna text me I think it's a pass. And if somebody said that to me, I would be like,
yeah, that's true.
Like, oh God,
I would never say that. I would never say it's a pass. But I always felt like it's important to like tell the person
up front.
Yeah, just be like, hey, I thought this was great, but like, I don't think this is a match. Because then you allow them, that's close the book. That it might hurt for a little bit.
Yeah, I like that.
And we deal with that. Oh, it was sad. Like I got my feelings hurt, but then it's done. Then you're not like thinking months later, oh, I wonder whatever happened. Do you think he liked me? You think he didn't like me? We also learn from that. And then we move forward with this idea of like, oh, I got to keep going.
I like that. Now, someone told me this, and I have adopted this for the most part, where somebody said I don't know who I could credit for it, but they said, always date with a second date in mind.
Of course.
And so and it kind of goes twofold. And I think I don't know, maybe I'm being a little sexist here, but this, especially for women, I feel like sometimes men can be on, like for me, it's a slow burn, right? Like I might not be totally attracted to this guy at the beginning, but as I get to know him, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's so great. Yeah. And but the only way to do that is to actually give him a second shot.
Of course.
Right? So I try, if they ask me out on a date again, I will almost always go.
Yes.
Like it has to be so bad, so putrid, so like really, really terrible for me to say no, thank you. Like
because you're both nervous on that first date, right?
For sure.
And I think that what you just said, actually, thank you so much for bringing this up because this is something that like I'm also very big on. Go on that second date. If it's like a maybe, if it's a whatever,
why not?
Like, and the nice thing too, living in New York City, it's not like what do you have to lose, right? It's like there's a million people around. You're like just go on that second date.
Yeah.
Allow that maybe, little bit of emotional connection, physical attraction grow a little bit by being in their presence. Because there is something about being in people's presence for a second time that you feel more comfortable. Like, because I think in our brain, we're so on and we don't allow ourselves to feel sometimes on a first date where it's that idea of like, oh, I don't know if I felt that physical connection. Yeah. I was like, well, did you feel physical or did you feel like you were like, because sometimes you walk out of a first date and you feel like, oh my God, like you're kind of out of your skin a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't feel like, oh, I actually just sat in myself and felt like myself.
You're too on.
Yes.
You're like,
And so it's like that physical attraction. Then I think go on that second date, and if it's no after a second date, that's okay.
Yeah.
You at least gave it another shot rather than just being like, no.
See ya.
Yeah, because we talk about the same thing. We're always looking for something better. And I think that is the thing that, this swipe on all these dating apps. We're always like, we're leaving that date, not sitting in that date, thinking about that date, thinking about the things we talked about.
Right.
We're like, oh, let me just get right back in that. There's probably someone else out here that wasn't great. Like, my panties aren't falling off, or like, you know what I mean? It's like, take a little time. Don't swipe. Yeah, and live in that moment of dating.
Yeah, someone said that to me once. I'm just quoting all these people that have like wise people in my life.
I love that.
Been like, no, but I remember, I think it was a therapist or something, and said to me, just, how do you feel sitting in silence? And I'm like, terrible.
Yeah. I had to think of my own thoughts.
Yeah. I'm like, but in reality, learning to be comfortable with the pauses and sometimes those pauses are great.
Because you are in each other's space.
Pauses actually can be really sexy. Pauses can be really good.
Should we try to pause right now?
I'm like, I'd like to start sweating.
Let's try it. Exactly. That's definitely what you would do.
That is what I have zero
You would fill the
swagger.
space.
I'd be like, hey,
exactly. Ask me
hi,
another question.
what's your favorite color?
Exactly. Yeah, that definitely is you. I actually sometimes love that. I'm that person that even sometimes, like, I just went to a party. I was on the Hamptons. There was this birthday party.
Wait, do you just sit back and watch this?
Yes. Yeah.
You like to watch the crazy.
Like, so I went to the party and I didn't really know a ton of people there.
Okay.
And so I got to the party, and instead of going, the table was all set up. We were going to do hibachi and and I didn't go to the table. I let everyone else go, and I sat on the porch and like looked down on the table, and I kind of was just like feeling everyone's energy.
Okay.
And everyone was like looking at me like, "What the fuck is this guy doing?"
On the porch? What do you mean?
The porch was up here, and then the table was down here, like up by the pool or whatever. And that was like that. That was me also like getting comfortable in myself, feeling the space that I'm in. And then also like watching everyone and being like, I don't feel like I have to like run in and say hi to everyone.
Which is great.
I can just kind of live in my own space. And also on dates, I do the same thing. Like, I feel like I used to just sit in that space. And if like there was this awkward silence, I would just be like it just letting energy kind of transfer between the two people rather than just like da 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 da.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I think there is, like you said, there's a sexiness. I think that you kind of let your energies come together a little bit and feel, and not like just hear each other's voice.
No, I agree.
Because again, like we talk on first dates, you are not alone. We get nervous, like going on it, like it's, and you feel like sometimes you leave that date and you're like, oh my God, did I, like, what just happened? It was like you know, you went a million miles an hour and you walk out, you're like, but I wanted to tell him this, but I wanted to take a deep breath. Yeah. Like this, I talk a lot about this with my clients. I'm like, guys, let's just go into this date feeling comfortable, letting like the night just kind of unfold. It's not an interview. It doesn't have to go perfectly. Like things, there can be those moments where it's like, oh, it was like awkward silence. Awkward silence is okay.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, and also like, you know, being with your partner in a space without being able to talk is something that,
or not having to talk.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like just being in the space.
Oh,
and it's like,
that's great.
You kind of just, it's calm.
I love when I'm so comfortable with somebody, or when you get to that point that you're like, it's easy.
Yeah.
Where it's just easy. So it'd be nice to practice that.
Yeah. Don't do it on a first date for like 5 minutes, but that might maybe like, okay, this person's weird.
Yeah.
But.
Or boring.
Yeah, boring. But I don't think anyone ever left the first date saying you were boring.
Not me.
Yeah. No,
I don't think I'm boring.
Okay, let's break down though. I want to hear a couple of like funny stories that you have from dating recently in New York City, because
this is why
I will tell you
brought me
exactly.
along.
This is
because I've got so many good.
Because dating in New York City is wild, and you come across like a lot of characters, and I think like also to survive here, you have to have certain kind of like swagger. Sometimes it's not good, but it's like you have to have this confidence to be like, let's go.
Okay,
so I want to hear. So
let me tell you an overly confident person that I met. So this person was or is an actor.
Okay. Which is okay.
That's a huge red flag to me. Yeah. Sorry to all the actors out there, but like,
you're more of a businessman type of guy.
Maybe, I don't know. So no, you could be an actor and you could be great, but it was just, you'll get it. So I go on this date. He's very handsome, like strikingly handsome, and which can go a long way for somebody, right? And I'm like, oh, I get why you're like, yeah. I get why you're an actor. And so we get to the restaurant, and it's wintertime, and he pulls off his jacket, and he's wearing a button-up shirt that is buttoned down to his belly button. It's like a full-blown like J-Lo.
He was hiding
Versace
nothing.
Dress.
He wanted to show you what he was working with.
Yes, and how can I say this nicely? Like,
it was too much.
It was too much, but it was also like, it's not like he had the body of a normal person, not a normal person. Oh, God, how do I say that?
You're trying to be nice right now. Just say it.
He did not look like a model,
Yeah,
right?
okay, yeah.
Underneath. Okay?
He was like maybe just like button a couple up. Like maybe you had a great chest and that's great or whatever, but like also work with what you got.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
I mean,
like,
your face is great. So
Yeah.
let's just focus on that.
Yeah. I hear
We
that.
didn't
I hear
need
that.
it.
I hear
But
that.
it was like
Overly confident.
It was overly confident. You're like, what are you doing? And I thought I expected him to be like, oh, and like button up his and he was like, I meant for this to happen.
This is me.
This is me. And I was like, okay, cool. And so we go and sit down. He made a reservation at this restaurant. And it's a really cute restaurant. And we go and sit down to eat. And I'm asking him questions. He's not really asking me any questions.
Not good.
Not good. But every time I asked him a question, he would answer with the preface, so as a creative.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Because he really wanted me
knows
to
it all.
know
Yeah.
that he was an actor and a creative actor.
Yep.
So you could be like, what's your favorite color? And be like, so as a creative, I really love
That's
to
a no.
experience.
It's a no.
It's just a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So
One time, fine, but like if you keep doing it over and over.
no,
and over
it was
again,
like everything,
Yeah, no.
everything. And he would insert it
Over-conversation.
into every conversation. And so I was like, I'll be honest, at that point, I was kind of like, this is not happening. So I'm going to pull my chair in closer. Like, this is going to be a good story later.
Yep.
And so again, overly confident. We're at this really cute restaurant and there's it's somebody's birthday.
Okay.
And so the waiters come around and they stand up and they start singing happy birthday. And it was
I
like
love
this
that. That's
woman,
one of my
I think it was
favorite
like this elderly woman. And everybody in the restaurant chimes in and starts singing.
Yeah.
And my overly confident date decides to stand up
Oh, no.
and start
Oh, no.
singing.
Oh,
Like
no.
like an opera kind
No.
of like happy birthday.
It was a performance.
It was a performance and it was,
Not the time.
I mean, it sounded great. I'm not going to lie. Like it did sound great. It was a performance. He'd probably done this before, but it was like he wanted everybody in the restaurant to look at him.
Yeah.
And shockingly, they were all looking at me.
'Cause
Because they're like looking to be like, is this guy for real? Is he not for real? And I'm looking like, I don't know. I don't know if this guy's for
like,
real.
I don't know what's going on.
Like, I am just as scared,
yeah.
confused as all of you. And he was not really joking. He was very, very serious. And
Yeah, that's not it. And
Yeah,
that's also
yeah.
like, this is the side of it too. Like, so we talked about this first date swagger.
yeah,
That doesn't mean like being so cocky, being so arrogant. Like, and this is also, I'll kind of chime in with it a little bit. When you're on a date, you don't want to be teaching someone everything. I think that's another thing that people like, there's a confident side of like, oh, you know, I'm really great at my job and I work really hard and I'm successful because of that. That's great. I love that. But there's a side of like, I'm really great at my job and this is how you should do your job is not like, that's not swagger. That's annoying. Like when someone right there, also a performance on a first date, it's the same idea of like when you think you know everything and you know like that people want to hear that performance from you. And like also it would be if that was a 7th date, okay, it was funny, like get up and do that. It's a first date. Like that is the first time that someone's meeting you and that's too much. Like that's just like it's.
I really like what you said though about teaching somebody something. So I have a friend who's opening up a yoga studio in New York City, and she is.
Want to give him a shout out? Come on, let's give him a shout out.
The practice room in New York City. It's opening in a couple of weeks
here in NoHo.
In NoHo, and it's fantastic. Like the space is amazing.
Okay,
and Lee Holcraft, who's the owner, is one of my dear friends, but very, very smart, brilliant woman. And I can't tell you how many times we've been out and we, meet some finance bros, no offense, or a dime a dozen here.
Yeah.
And
because you stand outside Goldman Sachs, that's why.
Yeah, that's what it is. And we're like, hey, love that blue Patagonia vest.
Exactly.
No, so I can't tell you how many times guys have been like, so do you have like a business plan? Do you need help with that? Do you need help with your business plan?
Like, did I ask you for your help?
Yeah, number one, I never asked you for your help, but the amount of males that assume she has no idea what she's doing is really, really funny.
That's sad.
And even guys who I know in the past who've like been interested in her who are like, well, let me help you. And it's like, no. Didn't ask for your help.
Yeah, exactly. If down the road, if you want to bring some, knowledge, you want to help with the
sure.
I love that idea.
Sure. But don't
not
like assume. But
and
also,
not when you first meet with someone. Like I think that's the idea right there too. Like let's talk about things you do not do on a first date. Like you're just meeting that person. You actually don't like that is not the time to be teaching them something. Like that is not it. Like you are there to get to know them, to feel a chemistry between each other. Like this is not class, because what happens in class, we all know, like the teacher just starts talking and then we just all sit there and then we get bored.
And somebody's going to sleep.
And and that's not making you feel sexy. That is not like, okay, I want to go on a second date, or like I want to get that good night's kiss. Because I actually do want to go into that next about a good night kiss on a first date. I mean, this is we just talked about a date and that was not great. And I'm sorry that happened to you.
Oh, there's way more where that came from.
Not the time to perform on a first date.
No.
But I've had some really great success stories in the last couple weeks. I feel like this summer, people are feeling kind of like, it's also been a little rainy too. So I think that also helps in the summer. Because I think when people are feeling so sexy in the summer, it's like clothes off, whatever. And it's been very rainy.
Yes.
And so there's been some days you spend inside. And I think that also helps in the summer. So it's been a successful couple weeks for my clients. And so we've been talking back and forth about first dates. And do you kiss at the very end of that first date? Or do you kind of wait on that first date?
I like a kiss at the end.
Oh.
I like it.
Okay.
Like, to me, it signals, I think there is something to be said about chemistry and when I kiss them, not that I'm looking for, oh my gosh, there's sparks. Like I have felt sparks on a kiss before, but just because you feel sparks on a kiss doesn't necessarily mean they're a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, I think it signals they were actually really into you.
Yeah. I like that.
And so more than just oh, I'm getting to know some random person, it's a random meetup, oh, I actually am attracted to you. Because in a first date context, you don't want the conversation to become really sexual.
Yeah, no, that,
right?
Yeah, of course.
And so this feels like a permitted way, not that it has to be super sexual or anything, but a permitted way to have physical contact and kind of test your physical chemistry without it being so over the top or crossing a line or whatever. So
that's the swagger. You have to have that swagger.
So if a guy, I do expect a guy to try to kiss me.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
okay.
I do. If he doesn't, I'm oh.
You like a guy that's going to be a little aggressive on the first date.
I wouldn't
not
even
aggressive.
say aggressive. It respectfully
goes after it. Okay, but I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this because I think, again, we got to bring it back to The Hitch with Will Smith. Yeah. We taught Albert. For me, I think the first kiss also matters on where you are. It's not I ordered Uber quick, because I just saw this happen actually in the city. It was I knew she didn't want I was waiting outside the restaurant because I was our reservation was in 15 minutes and the date was ending and she had ordered a car. And I could see that she didn't really want to kiss him.
Wait, did she order the car?
No, she ordered the car. She was getting in the car.
Okay.
And they were kind of walking out to the car. And I could see she did not want to give him a kiss.
Oh, I've
been he really wanted to go for the kiss, and I was kind of watching this, and he went in for the kiss, and she gave him a peck and then ran to the car. That is not the first kiss. That is not that energy right there. So again, for me, I love if it's possible. These are just little tips, energy wise.
Yes.
If you can walk him or her home and kind of leave him with a nice kiss at the door and then leave, that for me, I think is the best way. If it can't happen like that,
I
Round
love
two,
that.
it can't be a rush. It has to be like, if you give the kiss, like you kind of gotta feel each other's energy out, give the kiss, and then it's it's a walk away from each other. It's not like when she ran to the car, she could not have ran any faster.
Was she nervous though? She could have been like nervous.
I just don't think she really wanted to give it to him. To be honest.
Well,
like that, I was
happen.
sitting out
That
front,
does
like
happen.
watching this kind of unfold.
Yeah.
And there is that like awkward first date at the end of the
Yeah.
night. Like, and I think for me, you leave it confident. Like, okay, I'm leaving. Like, it's not this like runaway moment. And even if you don't like them, it's just like okay, it was so nice to meet you. Like, bye. It's not like
if a guy walks me home, I really like that. But I also have had men expect me to invite them in.
No, that's not it. That's
right.
Not it. That's
so
not it.
Can we declare that loud and proud in New York City?
Yeah, I know. I've been trying to work on that because I feel like it also is the same idea too, where because I have people that they love their first date and like, oh my God, I never wanted to end. I want to keep it going. I wanted to invite this because that happens on first dates where you like, you meet someone and you're like, oh my God, like, and you can both feel it back and forth. And they're like, well, why can't I just like, it's 2024. Like, we can just sleep with each other. No. Not on a first date. Do not invite them back up because then it gets into this like awkward space of like, what's the line crossed too long? And then what happens is a lot of times the girls would be like, oh, well, he just wanted to hit it and quit it. And then done.
Yeah.
Okay, then don't let them come upstairs. You know what I mean? Like kiss, goodbye.
We have
Door
a
is
whole
gone.
other episode on this.
Like,
we need
kiss,
a whole
kiss
episode.
and goodbye because
Kiss
it
and
is
goodbye.
not like,
I agree.
because if you invite them up, then like, and then you do let them go, then, and it doesn't work out, I'm going to hear, well, it's because they just want, well, then why did you let them up? Or why did you go up to their place? I think we're on like for me, 3 dates in, you don't go to their place.
Yeah. I love that. What
Am
is
I
her
old
name?
school? Yes. But
No.
like,
I've heard.
I'm looking to get like marriage and kids. Like that's the idea for you guys. So
There's the one person at, oh God, what is her name? She runs the Instagram account We Met at Acme.
oh yeah.
And so, I can't think of her name. Lindsay
Yep,
Metz,
Yep.
or Metz or something. But she says 5 dates.
Okay,
She says 5 dates.
Okay.
And so because 3
I think 3 is nice.
feels really expected though.
Well, listen, we want to get to 4 and 5. So for me, I feel like 3, you gotta go somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we are in New York City. Like
are
that is
in
the
New
thing
York
I
City.
think of. Like if we're talking about,
But I also think it depends on what type of dates they are.
of course,
Right? So
of
like
course.
a third date
But those
that's
have to
like
be- that
a
have to be
day
planned.
date
This,
that's like
that has to be
this.
planned. These
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
There's a
agreed.
strategy, and this is like I think going back to why we started this and how we started this first date is understanding your swagger and kind of who you are that makes you shine on a first date.
Right.
Because like at the end of the day, we have these stories that are like, like those stories about people singing, that's too much. And then we just went the other way of like inviting them up. But like you have to find that little bit of a middle ground where you're really like, okay, this first date is sexy and I'm confident and I'm getting to know them and they're getting to know me. And there's this energy between the both of us that's like, I'm not coming off too much. I'm not asking them like so many questions in an interview. I'm not teaching them anything. It's like this fluid energy back and forth. Like that's what that's the goal. That's really what date 1 to get you to date 2 really has to feel like.
So could you give people a really practical example or way? Maybe it's something that they can do. Like I love that you said that you took time when you went to that dinner, like you took time away from the rest of the crowd and took a moment to like get yourself together to kind of like assess the situation. That seems like that's just an example, but is there some type of tip that you have for people where they are feeling it? We all feel nervous. We don't feel, I mean, let's be honest, 99% of the time, I do not feel cool as a cucumber walking into most dates, right?
I got it.
So what's something practically that I can do before my next first date?
I think I love this question. And I think it's really sitting down before each date or once a week and really thinking about the things that make you you. Because at the end of the day, when you're going on a date, you don't want to be putting on a show. You don't want to be singing. You want the person to really think and feel and understand who you are. So before you go on those dates once a week, Write down the things also like that you like about yourself, that you think that you bring to the table, that like, and kind of use words of affirmation that give you the confidence that when you go on that date, remember that you are those things. Those are the things that you bring to the table, that those are the things that you want to show, and be comfortable in those. Really, I love words of affirmation. I love writing things down in a journal. Like, this is what I'm feeling good about. And then also it's okay to talk about those things. It's okay to be like a little vulnerable and like feel like on a first date, I left there maybe sharing things that I felt a little uncomfortable with, but it's okay to be uncomfortable. And I feel like that's really what I really want people to kind of get out of, my ideas behind dating and relationships is love. It's not always going to be perfect. Totally. But it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to really put your heart on the line, to maybe get hurt, to then maybe find that person that is going to be the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So I know.
From your lips to God's ears.
So that's the energy we're putting out. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode on dates and first dates and kind of what happens to get to date 7, to get to my grandparents married for 71 years. So thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
See ya.